Greetings from the year 2035, where people have finally agreed that sweatpants are acceptable business attire, horses roam the highways next to electric mini-tanks, and currency is as much metaphysical concept as cold hard cash. Today, we're reminiscing about the wild ride we all took from about 2020 to 2030, when markets behaved like caffeinated squirrels and everyone argued over whether a full tank of gas would cost a kidney or two. You'll recall the days when world currencies did the financial version of a tango, but with more tripping and stepping on toes. Every time we turned on the news, some global event was driving the dollar up, the euro down, the yen sideways, and the Canadian dollar was so busy yo-yoing that we half expected it to break into a Broadway number. Remember the endless debates over whether certain currencies could survive an onslaught of rising interest rates and wartime jitters? Yeah, that escalated quickly. And by quickly, I mean so fast you couldn't buy a loaf of bread in one place before the exchange rate changed. Fun times. It's weird to recall that the dollar went into Super Saiyan mode during global conflicts. Investors dashed for cover whenever real tanks or tank negotiations showed up. People joked about being paid in green force fields. Turns out, outside of major planetary collisions, the dollar still had a little magic left. Then there was the Canadian dollar, chugging along one week as if it had discovered coffee for the first time, only to drop like a stone the next. Canadians proved their legendary politeness, basically shrugging and saying, well, that's interesting, anytime the currency soared or sank. But hey, at least the moose population remained stable. From 2021 onward, we realized real fast that just about everything was getting pricey. Oil soared, wheat soared, gold soared. If you could dig it, pump it, or accidentally drop it on your foot, prices skyrocketed. Or, in some cases, plummeted, then skyrocketed again. Because why not? In 2027, we had that legendary great oil squeeze. People discovered the delicate ecosystem known as the global supply chain, which is basically code for good luck finding enough barrels when geopolitics goes bonkers. Some folks turned to electric cars, only to realize that electric grids weren't exactly cooperative. And that's when horses started looking weirdly appealing. While oil hogged the headlines, you couldn't ignore the food side. Wheat soared when farmland shrank, weather wreaked havoc, and big players started hoarding. Farmers who stuck it out grinned like they'd found a winning lottery ticket behind the tractor seat. Cattle prices also swung up, famously making that steak dinner in 2026 cost more than a Netflix subscription for a year. And by then, irregular weather patterns had turned avocados into contraband at brunch. Everybody loves a good bubble until it pops. The mid-2020s saw a lot of capital fleeing regions in conflict. Bingo, the North American market soared. Stocks of certain companies blew past expectations simply because they were not based somewhere with tanks rolling down the street. Sure, you had to keep an eye on inflation, but hey, at least you could watch your portfolio go up and occasionally down in real time. Then there was the real estate spree. In big cities, people worried about interest rates so high they might blow the roof off, quite literally. Some lucky folks who locked in low rates swore they'd discovered the fountain of youth. Meanwhile, potential buyers stood on the sidelines, munching popcorn, hoping houses would get cheaper, only to find that supply chain chaos had made new builds cost an arm, a leg, and a forklift. Classic conundrum. Of course, we can't talk 2023 to 2027 without mentioning the real wet blanket. War. Regions under threat bled capital faster than a balloon with 1,000 pinpricks. Money sprinted to safer harbours, mainly North America, like it was a Black Friday sale on financial calm. This phenomenon fueled the dollar's rise, boosted certain stock indices, and left the rest of the world feeling a tad left behind. Why invest in those places if you might wake up to bombs next door? Investors love their sleep. Looking back, it's almost funny how we flailed about. Politicians scrambled to fix energy crises with half-baked tax incentives or regulations, sometimes forgetting that logistics matter. Currency watchers hyperventilated every time a new central bank meeting was announced, bracing for a rate hike or a new tax on an over-caffeinated economy. And let's not forget the wave of rebranding that took place. 1 minute, it was green energy push. The next minute, it was oil is king again. Could we pick a lane, please? By the time we landed in 2035, the entire world felt like it had aged a century in just a dozen years. I remember stumbling into a cafe back in 2027 that was charging more for a single avocado toast than airline tickets had cost a decade earlier. As I sat there with my overpriced toast, I realized that global chaos was basically my new normal. Turns out, a few big lessons crystallized during that weird transitional era, and they've stuck with us ever since. Lesson 1. Geopolitics rule. Think of geopolitics like the stage director in a drama where everyone else just mimes around. Whenever a major conflict brewed, the price of everything from wheat to elaborate cat toys shot through the roof. Tanks rolling anywhere on the planet could trigger panic thousands of miles away. By 2030, we'd gotten used to news bulletins that read like action movie trailers. Tensions escalate, oil prices jump, or diplomats blink, currency plunges. It was the ultimate reminder that any war or friction, no matter how far away, could put a dent in your local grocery bill. Lesson 2. Currencies dance more than they waltz. Observing currency exchange rates in the mid-2020s was like watching a raucous nightclub dance floor at 3 a.m. Frenetic, unpredictable, and frequently painful. One day, the dollar was unstoppable. The next day, the euro tried to leapfrog it. Smaller currencies hopped around like they were auditioning for a reality TV show. By 2035, we'd developed an extremely chill poker face in response to every insane currency swing. Because, hey, you can only stay shocked for so long. Lesson 3. Commodities abide. No, seriously. If there was one unshakable truth, it was that basic staples, oil, crops, metals, never stopped mattering. When folks realized they couldn't magically conjure a power grid from good intentions, commodities became precious in a whole new way. Remember the great fuel shortage of 2025? After that, even the smallest rumor of a disrupted pipeline had everyone gripping their wallets like a lifeline and spurting nervous laughter so we wouldn't cry. Lesson 4. Local production, finally, got cool. Back in the 2020s, calling something locally sourced reeked of trendy marketing. By the late 2020s, it became downright necessary. Faraway supply chains kept snapping like cheap rubber bands, so communities learned to fend for themselves, brewing their own craft beer, forging their own spare parts, and trying their hand at small-scale agriculture. By the time 2035 rolled around, farmers' markets had turned into mini carnivals, complete with carnival rides powered by leftover vegetable oil. Lesson 5. Horses as Plan B. Yes, horses. After we discovered that electric grids weren't exactly stable in a massive oil crunch, folks started dusting off centuries-old solutions. A surprising chunk of the population learned how to saddle up, some out of necessity, others because they thought it was quirky. Evening newscasts showed everything from well-dressed professionals riding mares to the grocery store to entire horse-lane traffic jams. Sure, it felt silly at first, but it worked well enough when gas stations periodically went dry. All these lessons came at us fast, but by 2035 we'd more or less adapted. Sure, we still rolled our eyes at currency spikes or commodity shortages, but we'd seen worse. We'd come to accept that life on Earth was never as stable as the marketing brochures promised. And you know what? Despite all the chaos, it turned out that embracing the unpredictability, the improvisation, and occasional horseback commuting could be downright human. So, was the 2020 to 2030 rollercoaster terrifying? Absolutely. But did civilization collapse? Not quite. Eventually, markets stabilized. People adapted, and some even got rich off the craziest bets of their lives. Looking at you, those who stocked up on farmland or hopped into precious metals at just the right time. In 2035, we can lightheartedly joke about $200 per barrel oil or interest rates that soared higher than Elon Musk's rocket tests, because after all the smoke cleared, we realized one simple truth. We muddle through. Always.